Well, hello again. Somebody said to me the other day, "Do you realise that Ben Emlyn-Jones has used the least flattering image of you that he could find for his response videos to you?" I said, "Actually, I hadn't noticed that, but let's have a look." So I thought, yeah, well, okay, yeah, I'd say that's probably the least flattering image. So I thought the very least I could do was reciprocate. So I hope you enjoyed 30 seconds of Ben Emlyn-Jones, our favourite bedsit dwelling conspiracy theorist. Conspiracy hobbyist, looking like an aspiring bin man. Now, if you look at that mask he's wearing, it's got 2 + 2. It probably should say equals 5, but it says +5. So anyway, I thought I'd do. I'd make a couple of very quick reply comments. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I thought I'd do a couple of quick reply comments just to sort of just to show quite clearly what the issue is. I mean, Ben Emlyn-Jones says yes, he debates me. You know, they have a Blue Earth thing on the Apollo defectives, and of course they have a skeptic, they say. But of course, when it comes to the Apollo moon landings, of course, Jones and co are the skeptics. But yes, I think I could do a much better job than Blue Earth thing, which is why they won't have me on there. And of course, a bit snuffly, but I don't have COVID, as far as I know, anyway. But and the reason, of course, that he says he will debate me by doing these reply videos, but that's not what he's doing. And I'll give a couple of examples of that, and I'll show exactly what would happen. If you see, if he didn't actually run away and hide behind Sugrin. And he's not fooling anyone. Everyone knows that's exactly what he's doing. Because once these arguments are destroyed, they're destroyed. Now, I do reply videos which destroy his arguments. And then he said, oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's all he says. He doesn't say why. And in his latest video, he was saying, people say to me that I'm wrong, but they don't say why I'm wrong. Well, yes, I've been saying why you and the rest of those idiots are wrong for a very long time. And then you just do a video saying, oh, it doesn't prove anything. That's not it. But you see, if I was actually talking to Ben Emlyn-Jones, I could say, well, what exactly are you unhappy about with regard to my argument? Tell me what you're unhappy about, and we'll address that. But of course, that just doesn't happen, does it? Because once the points are addressed and they're stomped into their stupid arguments are stomped into the ground, that's it. Where do they go from there? They have to run and hide and stick their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la, so they can keep presenting this absolute bloody rubbish. Whether it's about the moon landings, whether it's about free energy, whether it's about 9/11, any of that stuff. It's all absolute bloody rubbish. Every argument they put forward is ludicrous. So anyway, let's just have a quick look at a couple of clips from Ben Emlyn-Jones, and I'll make a couple of what I think are quite valid points. Okay, let's start with this little clip. This is going to be over his left shoulder there on the right hand side of your screen is one of the crew members from the Secret Space Force. The people that have got the squadrons of flying saucers that are going to carry out the fake alien invasion. Do you think the people might notice that the enemy is actually inflatable? Anyway, we'll get to that a bit later on. But let's just have a listen to this.
They have a problem with me. They post something that just they post something explaining why they have a problem with me, which doesn't quite make sense, is wrong. I explain to them why they're wrong, and they just carry on as if I haven't said anything. They just carry on at me as if I haven't said anything, or if I've said something completely different to what I said before.
And that's exactly what you do, Ben, with my responses. You never explain to me why I'm wrong. You just say, oh yeah, you think you've debunked that. Well, you haven't. You don't explain why. And I'll give you, first of all, I'll show a clip of Ben from one of his reply videos saying, oh, no, you haven't debunked that, you haven't debunked that, you haven't debunked that. As I said previously, it's very easy. It's very easy to sit behind a camera and say, no, you haven't debunked it. Not so easy to face someone in a debate and say the same thing, because I'd say, okay, Ben, you tell me exactly what you're unhappy about and we'll address that point, or those points specifically. But that's never going to happen, because he's always going to hide behind Sugrin. He knows it'll be all over if he had to face any real questions. So do the rest of those bloody idiots on that Apollo Defectives panel. But the thing is, I mean, what they don't do is they don't look at the evidence that's being presented to them and say, oh yeah, okay, fair enough, you've got a point there. What they will do is get together and try and find come up with something that they can say. Blimey. So that they don't have to say, yes, okay, you've got a point. Now, what I thought, and I'll see if I can find the clip, what I thought was really bloody ridiculous with this bloke here was he was talking about the Artemis project, and he said, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens if Artemis goes. It looks like they're going to do something. You know, they've got a picture of the astronaut and they're building the rockets. Now, Ben's not old enough to have been around in the 60s when Apollo was going on, but they were doing exactly the same thing, of course. I was a teenager when I watched Armstrong step on the moon. So there was, I made airfix models of the Saturn V rockets, you know, with all the different colour schemes for different missions. And if you look at them, they are subtly different. He wasn't around then. What would he have said then? Oh, well, they're building all the rockets, they're training all the crews, they've got 400,000 people involved in this project. It looks like they're getting ready to do something. It looks like they're getting ready to fake it. It's nonsense. It's just drivel, really. And he said, oh, yeah, well... and he actually said something that I said that he would probably say. When there is someone that goes to the moon and finds the Apollo hardware, shows the Apollo hardware on the lunar surface where it's been for the last 50 years or however long it's been. And he'll say, well, they could have put it there, you know. Artemis could be faked. And if they go there and show the Apollo stuff on the moon, they could have put it there. And that's exactly what I said he would say. Because he's not remotely interested in looking at the truth or the facts. All these idiots do it. They get together behind the scenes, you know, be on the phone to Marcus Allen and these, you know, Neil Peel and these other bloody morons. And they'll be saying, oh, what can we say? What can we say? Oh, well, yeah, we'll just say, you know, with the shadows, yeah, what he said, it's a matter of perspective. Just keep repeating that. But they don't repeat it during their videos. They don't say these shadows on the moon could be caused. Of course, it could just be down to perspective. They don't say that. Marcus Allen will say, oh, this is impossible. How does he know? Has he been to the moon? I think he's got absolutely no idea about how shadows fall. And I've made a couple of videos about how shadows fall, and I'm happy to make as many as they like. But what I thought was really funny with Marcus Allen was that during the last Apollo Defective, that he said, oh, this is a model, you know. If this was a single light source, this is how the shadows would fall if this was a model. So if they made someone made a model and had a single light source, they'd say, well, there you go, that's how the shadows fall from one light source. And he'd say, well, there you go, that's what I said. I told you so. Because Marcus Allen, and I might show a clip later on, had actually said in the past, you know, if anyone showed him some convincing evidence, he'd happily withdraw his arguments. And they said, well, what about the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter photographs? And he said, well, they're fake too. And the academic that was presenting that, and I might show that clip later on, he said, academically, it's hard to know where to go from there. And that is how an academic calls someone a moron. It's just a translation for you, if you find that ambiguous there, Ben. So there's Ben saying, well, you know, why don't you just tell me what the problem is? Tell me? And this is exactly what he does to me. No, you haven't debunked that. No, you haven't debunked that. He never ever says why or how or what's wrong with my argument, because he can't, because he knows that I have thoroughly debunked his ridiculous nonsense. All right, well, let's just go to a clip where he's actually saying that. Okay, so here's the example of Ben doing exactly what he said he wishes people wouldn't do. And that is, he'll just go through, you know, I said I debunked this, and he said, no, you didn't. I debunked that. No, you didn't. I debunked that. No, you didn't. Doesn't say why. You know, there's no argument there. Okay, I'll show you what I mean.
Steve mumbling, huh?
This is from his reply 33 video. There's a timestamp, 3:36:54.
Which, of course, Steve mumbling. He has to comment on this, doesn't he? You were wrong about the shadows. Really, because of that experiment you did in the sunlight. Yeah, you demonstrated there are perspective effects with shadows and sunlight, Steve, but you did not demonstrate that. You did not demonstrate that. You did not demonstrate that the effects you see in the Apollo program are the same as the effects you get from natural sunlight.
Well, I think I did. I mean, what have I got to do? Go to the moon? Go to the moon and film the Apollo hardware that's still sitting on the surface? I think they probably thought, well, thank goodness he said that's a matter of perspective. That's given us a get out of jail free card. Well, actually it hasn't, because it is although perspective comes into it, certainly they never mention perspective when they're doing their videos. They don't say, well, you know, this is our layman's opinion because we know absolutely nothing about what we're looking at. But we think that these shadows couldn't be cast by a single light source. But of course it could be. It could just be a matter of perspective. They never say that. And I think I've demonstrated quite clearly that, you know, Marcus Allen saying, oh, you can't get shadows diverging like this. It's impossible. From sunlight, you know, natural sunlight doesn't cast shadows that diverge like that. It's impossible. And I think I've shown that he's talking out of his pimply old backside like he normally does. I've shown diverging shadows. I can make as many shadow videos as you like. But more importantly, this bunch of Muppets have not proved that the shadows shown in the Apollo images could not be cast from a single light source, from the sun. Marcus Allen said, well, natural sunlight wouldn't cast shadows that way. That's his opinion. He hasn't done, these guys haven't done any experiments to show that it's not possible. They're looking at the pictures and they're giving layman's opinions. And they're talking rubbish. You want people to prove shadows can be cast like that? Well, I've showed you shadows from natural sunlight can be cast like that. They can be cast all over the place. What specifically would you want to see? What would convince you? You tell me that, and I'll go and film it. And then we can put that one to bed once and for all. Surely you don't expect me to go to the moon and film the Apollo hardware. Perhaps you should consider going to the moon and filming the Apollo hardware yourself, and then you'll see that the shadows fall exactly as they do in the Apollo images. Perhaps you guys should get together, have a whip round, make a model, and do some experiments. But Marcus Allen probably thinks he's got you covered there, because I think he said, well, that could be a model, that could be a model. You see, if you made a model and it was really small, it was this size, then one single light source could cast shadows like that. So he's sort of covering himself there in case anyone does make a model and say, well, look at these shadows. There you go. And Marcus Allen, of course, has said in the past that, you know, if someone showed him some convincing evidence, he'd happily withdraw his arguments against the Apollo moon landings. And his arguments are all based on opinion. He's got no evidence. He's got nothing to back it up. He shows a picture and he gives his opinion on it. You know, this is not evidence. It's a layman's opinion. And Marcus Allen has no idea what he's talking about when he was talking about the communications, not being able to get the television pictures back because the Earth is spinning and the moon is spinning. Not enough power, because he's looked at Wikipedia and they say television stations need, you know, tens of kilowatts. The moon, while it's technically true that the moon is spinning, it spins so slowly that it always presents the same face to the Earth. So effectively, as far as the Earth is concerned, it doesn't spin. That's why there's the dark side of the moon. There's a side of the moon that we never see. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Marcus Allen sounds convincing. He speaks with authority on stuff he has absolutely no idea of. You know, he's got no clue about any of it. Yeah, he speaks with authority. So people, he's got an authoritative voice, so people tend to, gullible people will tend to think that he may have something, but he really hasn't. And he said he's happy to debate the science with anybody at any time. Well, I've put an open invitation out to Marcus Allen to debate him on this channel on numerous occasions. I've never heard from him. Because he knows he's talking rubbish. The question is why, you know? Why do they keep spruiking all this rubbish when they know it's rubbish? Okay, so either prove that those shadows could not be cast like that on the lunar surface from a single light source, from the sun, or shut up about it, because you're asking people to prove you wrong, and you're asking people to prove a layman's opinion wrong. Okay, so that's the shadows. Just remember, Ben, in future, when you're talking about shadows cast on the lunar surface, let everybody know that it could just be a matter of perspective.
You were wrong about the communication systems. No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. Because these people have got no idea about the technology involved, they don't understand it. So Ben can just brush it aside. You know, I said you were wrong about the communication system, and he said, no, I wasn't. Well, let's have some details, Ben, because when I did a response video to this Apollo defective rubbish that you put out, and you were saying it was impossible to get the television pictures back to Earth because Marcus Allen was saying the Earth is spinning and the moon is spinning. There's not enough power. There's only 4 kilowatts available or something on the lunar module. Look, I've looked at Wikipedia. He didn't actually say that. But he said television stations broadcast tens of thousands of watts. And I actually put in my video the information from NASA about the communication system. Now, I haven't looked at it again, but from memory, it was microwave. It was X-band. The information on the NASA website that tells you all about the communication system tells you it was made by Collins. Tells you what the transmitter power was. It was either 20 watts or 40 watts. It wasn't very much. Tells you what frequencies they used. Tells you what the antenna gain on the lunar module was. Tells you what the antenna gain was at Parkes, the receiving station. Now, don't you think that every radio engineer on the planet would be jumping up and down screaming that can't be done with those numbers if it couldn't be done? And if you do that, you can do a part with that information, with the transmitter power, the antenna gain, the frequencies, the frequency, and the receive antenna gain. You can do something called a path loss calculation. And if you do a path loss calculation, it will show that with the information that NASA provides, it would certainly work fine with a low power transmitter, either 20 or 40 watts. I can't remember which. And they're saying, oh, you need thousands of watts. And that's because Ben Emlyn-Jones and Marcus Allen and these other people have absolutely no understanding of the technology. You're telling me I'm wrong. Okay, well, you're telling NASA they're wrong as well. I remember. So back that up, Ben. If I'm wrong about the NASA communication system, and it's no way they could get pictures from the moon, live television pictures from the moon back to the Earth, show me your calculations. Show me your path loss calculations. Maybe you could get, there's another moron, Johnson. Maybe you could get, he's a broadcast engineer supposedly, isn't he? I'm sure he could help you with that. And the calculations, of course, will show that it quite clearly can be done. So that should be quite entertaining. Now get him to do that. Give you a hand with your calculations there, Ben. So you were wrong about the communication system. You're talking out of your backside. Okay. Again, you know, if there was a debate, I could put these points to him. And I think he would visibly shrink in front of our eyes. And, you know, but he won't, of course, talk about it to anyone that knows anything about this stuff, because he knows that once that argument is destroyed, you can destroy these arguments one by one. They've got nowhere to go. They just have to give it up, don't they? And all the backslapping and the self-adulation and everything else of these people would evaporate. And Trevor Weaver, I thought, was quite interesting. He said, yeah, I used to argue with my kids that, you know, the Apollo moon landing was actually real. But then I saw a clip and it showed that someone threw something at the lunar module, and we heard a thump on the recording, and there was no pressure in the, there was no air pressure in the lunar module at the time. That convinced me. And I thought, this guy's got absolutely no idea either. He's clueless. And I wonder when, you know, whoever goes to the moon and shows all the Apollo hardware on the lunar surface actually exactly where it should be, exactly where the history books tell us it is Weaver going to refund everybody their money for this fake moon landing rubbish? The other people that have written books about this, Randy Walsh, are they going to refund people's money? I mean, with the thump on the lunar module, he's obviously never heard of sort of mechanical transmission of sound through structures. If you put a dustbin in a vacuum chamber, bolt a microphone to a dustbin, put it in a vacuum chamber, suck all the air out, and then hit it with a hammer, you'll still get a thump on the recording, because the vibration is transmitted through the structure to the microphone. It vibrates the microphone and produces the sound. The microphone records that vibration as an electrical signal. So, or the equipment connected to the microphone would record it as an audible thump. So they've got no idea what they're looking at. They've got no idea what they're talking about. Okay.
You were wrong about every aspect of the technology. No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. Absolutely and completely wrong. Wrong. Yeah, I should have actually let this play on just a little bit.
You were wrong about the Van Allen radiation belts. No, I wasn't. Just...
yes, you were. Now, you've got to bear in mind that this guy's a self-employed dog walker or gardener. This is a basement bedsit. Now, Professor Van Allen, who had the radiation belts named after him, wrote an email to somebody that was inquiring about this, and I actually included that in one of my response videos from Van Allen himself, saying that the radiation belts provided a minimal risk when considered against the rest of the risks involved in the mission, and he advised NASA of the issue with the radiation in the Van Allen radiation belt. So they planned the trajectory so that the Apollo spacecraft would sort of skim the edge of the Van Allen radiation belts and spend as little time as possible actually exposed to the radiation. So Van Allen himself said, you know, as far as the risks go, it's pretty minimal compared with the rest of the risks they're taking. So you're wrong, wrong, wrong about that. And this is something, you know, I've done these the Apollo Defectives videos, and I've pointed all this stuff out. But they never ever say, yeah, okay, you got a point. You know, Van Allen himself said it's not an issue. It's probably not an issue, is it? They just keep arguing this point. You know, the deadly Van Allen radiation belts, it's impossible to go through. When Van Allen himself says this is, it's not an insurmountable problem. It's not even a significant problem if you go through the edge fast enough, you know. The edge of the Van Allen belts fast enough, and all the Apollo trajectories. That's how they traversed the Van Allen belts. They went along the edge, just through the edge of the Van Allen belt. So they spent as little time as possible being exposed to radiation. They monitored the radiation that the astronauts received. Not a problem. So you're wrong, wrong, wrong about that. So why do you and these other morons on the Apollo defectives keep arguing this point? It doesn't make sense, does it? It's just another ridiculous argument. Oh, and it might have been S-band actually, the comms from Apollo. I haven't looked at the article again. I'd have to go and find it. I'd have to go and have a look at the NASA website. But certainly all the information regarding the communication systems for Apollo are on there for anyone to read. And people that can read it and understand it will see that it's all perfectly fine. It will all work perfectly fine. People like this read it and got no idea what they're looking at, and they go, "Oh, this is rubbish." You know, it just makes no sense at all, does it? Okay, what else? Oh, actually, I think first, this is probably going to deserve a quick one of these. Well, sorry guys, but I couldn't resist putting in another 30 seconds worth of our favourite aspiring bin man in action. You can see why Caroline Stevens has cut him loose. Doesn't want to know him. can't be associated with anybody. Spruik's the sort of rubbish that Ben comes out with, you know. Anybody that actually seriously believes the Queen of England is a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. Sorry, I can't do echo effects. I haven't got a bucket handy.
Vera, yes, it is highly radioactive. It's 3 times hotter than the Sahara in daylight, 3 times colder than Antarctica in shadow. Do you think they'll be able to make a home video up there? It is laughable. Well, this comes to the massive temperature differentiation on the moon, and the effect it would have on the Kodak Ektachrome ATSA film. Yeah. David Percy's talked about this, as has Marcus Allen, and there's articles actually on allist.com where they've done experiments on that very type of film, and it's quite remarkable results you might find.
Yes, but they haven't. That's the point. They've gone out and bought some stock Kodak film over the counter at the chemist probably. But unless, of course, they duplicate the specially made film. And remember that NASA had film specially made by Eastman Kodak for the Apollo missions, which had a particularly thin film and with a custom emulsion, custom formulated emulsion. So unless they were testing something that was exactly the same, unless they got Eastman Kodak to make them up some rolls of this precisely duplicated film that Eastman Kodak supplied for the Apollo missions, they've proved absolutely nothing. They have proved absolutely nothing.
In terms of radiation and heat differentiation.
Be interesting to talk to these people as well and find out what they used for a radiation source when they were doing their film testing. Not that there'd be any point really, because it's a completely different film that they're testing, and how they generated the sub-zero temperatures, and of course such a lot of heat. Would be quite interesting to see what they actually did, but all this is just full of bloody rubbish. I mean, it's got that Scott Henderson's nonsense on there. It really is awful drivel. Okay, what else we got? I should have let that just play on just a little bit further, just a little bit more Apollo stuff.
Oh, hang on, that's a long one. Hang on. Steve mumbling on Apollo detectives. Is Weaver going to refund everyone's money when the new moon missions prove it can be done?
Well, he should, shouldn't he? Don't you think?
And show the Apollo hardware on the moon. Well, are you saying that if the Artemis program and the Orion spacecraft get to the moon, come back safely to Earth, and land on it and come back safely to Earth, that proves the Apollo missions took place?
Well, I don't have to. I mean, there's so much video footage of, rocks are returned from the moon by the Apollo missions. There's so many documentaries about it. The evidence for the moon landings is overwhelming. I don't have to prove anything. It's all proven and proven and proven and proven again, isn't it? That the Apollo missions were all real. NASA have proved it over and over again. I was watching, in fact, I might find that clip. I was watching quite an interesting clip that was, it was the communications back chatter for bringing the television pictures from the moon, and they're switching from Parkes to Honeysuckle Creek, back to Goldstone. You think all this was faked. All these people, it was all faked. They just, no idea, these people. You can see why they live in cars and in bloody bedsits and what have you.
Is that your point?
Spruik science fiction comics.
Because that doesn't necessarily follow.
And why exactly?
Show the Apollo hardware on the moon. Well, firstly, are they going to land near the original Apollo landing sites?
Well, that's not what I said. I said, what if they do? What if they go there and show the Apollo hardware on the moon? So he's already trying to look for a get out. Why? Why immediately try and look for a get out?
Have they selected landing sites yet? And if they do, well, will they be the real Apollo landing sites? I mean, they could be something the moon base they selected. They just put up on the moon base,
What moon base? I've said it over and over again. If you took Ben Emlyn-Jones and these other morons to the moon and showed them the Apollo hardware on the lunar surface, they'd say, "You put that there yesterday."
Horrible Harry Toast says, "Well, that's all. Throw it a monkey at the wrench."
Yeah, okay, I'll probably go on for a bit. But you can see the mindset of this guy, the mindset of these other people. They're not interested in looking at the facts. They're not interested in looking at the truth. All they're interested in doing is maintaining their position. Strange, isn't it? Yeah, I should have picked up on this actually. I should have, but I thought this was worth including. In the previous clip, I should have jumped on this really. This is where I asked the question. If Artemis goes to the moon and they see the Apollo hardware on the lunar surface. Exactly, where the history books tell us it should be. What are you going to say then?
Well, are you saying that if the Artemis program and the Orion spacecraft get to the moon, come back safely to Earth and land on it and come back safely to Earth, that proves the Apollo missions took place. Is that your point? Because it doesn't. That doesn't necessarily follow. And show the Apollo hardware on the moon. Well, firstly, are they going to land near the original Apollo landing sites?
That's what I should have picked up on. Are they going to land near the original Apollo landing sites? It was the fact that he went off at a bit of a tangent there. He didn't answer the question. I mean, it's a straightforward enough question, isn't it? What happens if they go there and Artemis goes there and they show the Apollo hardware exactly on the lunar surface, exactly where the history books tell us? But he's trying to wriggle out of that. What if are they going to go there? But he actually said, are they going to go to the original Apollo landing sites? Now, if they never went to the moon and it was all rubbish, what original Apollo landing sites are you talking about, Ben? See, Ben Emlyn-Jones and Marcus Allen make a lot of these Freudian slips where they refer to the original, where Ben refers to the original Apollo landing sites on the moon. Marcus Allen will say things like von Braun and co. were the Germans that got America to the moon. He'll show a picture of Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, this is Marcus Allen, in an Apollo capsule or the lunar module. And he'll say this was taken before they even reached the moon. Now, why would they make comments like that if they seriously believed it was all rubbish? I think the Freudian slips they make clearly show that these clowns know it all happened. They're just spruiking all this fake Apollo rubbish to keep themselves, get their faces on YouTube, soak up a bit of adulation from a bunch of gullible half-wits that think they've got something worthwhile to say. Are they going to land near the original Apollo landing sites? Okay. Let's just see if there's anything, before I skip on to the next bit, whether there's anything more here.
Have they selected landing sites yet? And if they do, well, will they be the real Apollo landing sites? I mean,
will they be the real Apollo landing sites? What real Apollo landing sites are you talking about, Ben?
It could be something with the moon base. They selected. They just.
Now here we drift off into the world of fantasy. The plane, boss, the plane, the plane. Welcome to Fantasy Island, where where there are manned bases on the moon. Yeah, okay. All right, let's see what else we've got. Okay, and this might be worth a quick word or two.
Or in a spirited fashion, pales into insignificance compared with taking off, flying through space, separating and docking the vehicles, landing on the moon, taking off for the moon, hitting the narrow re-entry corridor and splashing down. Yes, it does, Steve, and I explained to you, maybe because of the tense political climate at the time, why that.
Tense political climate at the time. Perhaps you should mention that to Marcus Allen, Ben, because Marcus Allen says that it was all faked and the Russians and the Americans were cooperating at the time, and that the Russians would keep this secret and back the Americans up. And now you're saying it was it was fake because of the tense political situation at the time. So perhaps next time you do one of these Apollo defectives things and Marcus Allen says they were cooperating, you could mention that to him, eh, Ben? Completely ridiculous, of course. That the Americans would let the Russians hold a secret like that over them for the rest of time. Can you really imagine that? Having a secret that big held by somebody else. It's like a murder, you know. If you murdered somebody, if one other person knows you've committed the murder, you can never relax. You never know when you might get a knock on the door. And this would be the same thing, exactly the same thing, but on a much larger scale. You know, if the Russians knew the Americans faked it and kept quiet about it, you never know. There might be a change in regime, you know. The Russians might be particularly upset with the Americans about something, and they would reveal all they knew, you know. It's just ludicrous to suggest that the Russians know the Americans faked it. The Russians know the Americans went to the moon because the Americans went to the moon. It's just a little bit more, maybe.
Would be a reason to fake it. Of course, it's going into space.
Of course it wouldn't. What a load of rubbish. Yeah, maybe I should have let that just play on a little bit. I think this is quite amusing.
Well, some cowards. They could fly. Obviously they're brave to get into a rocket in the first place.
So there's real rockets, eh? They're getting the rockets.
Doesn't mean that there's going to be some kind of. It doesn't mean necessarily. Excuse me.
He's having to. He's drawing on his reserves of bullshit here, and they're running a bit low.
That they would be done for real. So Alex Ritchie says.
Oh dear! I just thought that was worth including. I don't know why. Maybe it's my warped sense of humour. So we've got here.
I would say we were already a lunar resident prior to '69. Although, Alex, I believe there are bases on the moon. Yeah, there are both man and alien bases on the moon. You see that?
Yeah, okay. Where's the evidence for that, Ben? Manned and alien bases on the moon. It's more science fiction claptrap, of course. Zero evidence for bases on the moon, alien or manned or otherwise. Just science fiction nonsense. It's hard to understand why someone like Ben can believe there's a secret space program. We've got manned bases on the moon. And we've had them for some time, apparently, and NASA were incapable of landing a tin can on the moon in 1969. That doesn't really equate, does it? I wonder what that's all about, really. Doesn't make any sense to me. What do you reckon? Yeah, I thought this was quite amusing.
You said the Apollo defective should enter this competition. All right.
This is a competition to apparently you can win a ride up to the International Space Station. I don't know whether it's real or not, but that's what he's commenting on.
Sarcasm. Why? Between them, they know more about space exploration and everything that goes on with it than NASA and SpaceX put together. Correct.
I really thought that was amusing. Someone said that the Apollo defectives know more about space exploration than NASA and SpaceX. And he goes, correct. Does he really, honestly, seriously believe that? I noticed there was a caption under this Apollo defectives nonsense that they do. Some space experts debate or discuss, whether or not the Apollo moon landings were space experts. There's Ben Emlyn-Jones. Marcus Allen, Jarrah White, and who else is on? None of them, of course, are space experts. None of them. They might be legends in their own minds, but they are not space experts by any stretch of the imagination.
Now, for example, we have Jarrah White, who gives Elon Musk advice on dealing with radiation in space. Randy Walsh knows all there is to know about rocket engines and rocket science. Marcus Allen, you need him if you want a visual reference on TV because NASA don't have a clue. Ben knows everything there. Well, I didn't want to be the first one to say it, Steve. Scott Henderson.
That's a reply to Steve Palmer. That's not a reply to me. It's a different Steve.
Sharper than a knife.
Yeah, he's not quite as sharp as a billiard ball, Scott Henderson.
Need a brain if they need a brain on cartoons, they can't do without Colin. If they all enter and all got through, which they would because they know the truth, man. How would the public side would win this battle between such huge intellects? HTML tag sarcasm. Well,
Yeah, I think it says a lot that Steve thought he should point out that that was sarcasm. It shows it shows at least what Steve Palmer thinks of their intellect.
And Steve, I'm not sure that our particular area of expertise would make us more or less qualified to go up onto the International Space Station. It may be worth a try.
Yeah, well, what expertise is that, Ben? Perhaps you could explain to us exactly what expertise you think you have, and what you think that Randy Walsh has, to comment on the F1 engines or any of these other things. What expertise do these people have? Because I'd really like to hear that. Hang on, let's just see if there's anything forthcoming.
I don't think it's really relevant what we believe about Apollo. It's not.
Yeah, actually, that's the first thing he said that I would agree with. Whatever Ben Emlyn-Jones, Marcus Allen, or any of these other cranks have to say about the moon landings being faked, it's completely irrelevant. It just isn't relevant. They're not qualified, they're not space experts, they're just a bunch of laypersons giving opinions on stuff they have zero understanding of. Said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. They're just bloody clueless.
Steve Mumbling says on the UFO disclosure, I thought you might have something to say about this. Bryce Sable is in no position to say Roswell is an ET craft that crashed. Really, Steve? Have you read his blog? You read the blog article?
Yeah, he's a journalist. He wasn't there. He produces there's no tangible evidence for Roswell being an alien spacecraft. I mean, this. Who's this guy? It's like, as I said, it's just like Ben Emlyn-Jones saying it. It's meaningless. Unless you can put up any tangible evidence to prove the case, because it's such an extraordinary claim, it requires extraordinary evidence. Writing a blog is meaningless.
It's nonsense. It's just like saying it.
It's just like you saying it. You skipped over a word there, Ben. It's just like you saying it. It's meaningless. If you can't back it up with some tangible evidence, it's rubbish. It's as simple as that. Okay.
Meaningless, which is what you do. You just say things. You don't.
No, I don't. I say things and I back it up. I back it up with examples. I back it up with evidence. Like the NASA communications system showed all the information relating to it. Like the shadows, I've gone out and filmed some shadows. I've probably done other stuff as well. But...
Don't give reasons. Why do you think the aliens don't disclose themselves by flying a spacecraft or to over several of the world's major cities for all to see? Because they tried it in 1997 in Phoenix and it didn't work. Bloody Fife Symington he covered it all up.
Yeah, the important point he's missing there is, what I said was, why don't they get a couple of flying saucers and fly them over several of the major cities in the world? And he said, yeah, they've done that. They flew it over Arizona or wherever it was, and Fife Symington covered it up. But what I said was several of the major cities, the world's major cities. So you've got a couple of spacecraft, and you fly them over New York, then you fly them over London, and you fly them over Beijing, and you fly them over Moscow, and you fly them over other capitals of the world, Kuala Lumpur, all these sort of places. Just fly them over and do it all within an hour, so you can show that you've got superior technology and you can fly as fast as you like. Do it all within an hour. You'd have all these television stations all reporting it. I'm not talking about one UFO sighting in one place, because if they did that, it would be undeniable. There's no way it could be covered up. It would be on every television station on Earth. People would be live streaming it. Why doesn't that happen? Why don't the aliens just disclose themselves by doing that? We wouldn't be able to touch them. I mean, if they flew over London, flew over New York, 2 minutes later they flew over New York, flew over Dublin, flew over, and then carried on, flew over Singapore, flew over Sydney, flew over Canberra, flew over Moscow, Beijing, all these places, all within an hour. It would be undeniable, wouldn't it? Why do you think that doesn't happen? Yeah, it's. I suspect it doesn't happen because they're not here. It's as simple as that. Why would they be interested in keeping their presence a secret? Okay, let's see if there's anything else here.
This would be on every TV station in the world and be all over the internet live. Well, maybe today it would be, but back in '97.
Well, yes. Well, why isn't it done today? Why wasn't it done last year? Why wasn't it done the year before that, 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 all the way back to 1997? Why wasn't it done? Why hasn't it been done? Because there's nothing going on. And that's why it hasn't been done.
Of all the material, all the witness statements, everything was shot. They just the mainstream TV just chose the worst of it. They chose the worst examples they could. It would be undeniable. All we have at the moment is a lot of stories. There's no tangible evidence to support the crash of an ET craft. There is.
Well, perhaps you'd care to show it to us, Ben.
The technology will be so advanced. Oh God, we've done that, Steve. We've done that.
Yeah, he doesn't understand it, does he? He has no grasp of the level of technology that will be involved to fly here from another star system. He's just got no idea. And I thought it was quite funny that it was either on this or there was some other thing I saw that, well, there must be something to this because Tom DeLonge has been briefing Trump, has been briefing the Pentagon. A musician is briefing them on extraterrestrial visitation. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. All right, what else we got? Okay, mercifully, we're coming towards the end. So I think there's just a little bit to go with regard a couple of comments.
At 1:49:50, let's just have a look here.
Has anyone ever heard me sound like that, just out of curiosity? He's reading out one of my comments now. This is relating to the fake alien invasion.
Right, Steve, I'm going to the timestamp. Please be observed.
They'll say, oh yeah, I'll leave a comment on Ben's channel saying, no one could pull off a convincing, no nation on Earth or collection of nations on Earth possess the technology to pull off a convincing fake alien invasion. Oh yes, they have. Oh.
Yes, they do. They do, though. That's the thing.
Oh yes.
Of course they don't. Science fiction drivel.
They have. That's all they'll say. They won't say what form they think it'll take. What is it? Inflatable flying saucers at the Saturday afternoon football match, maybe. All over the world, there's a lot of inflatable flying saucers, isn't it? What the fucking fuck?
No, it wouldn't. It would not be inflatable. Hang on, no, wait. I'm about to reply to what I'm about. I myself, in a previous video, I've replied to this. I do it. Well, Steve carries on here. Ben demonstrates exactly what I mean when I talk about the Wu's not providing details about the fake alien invasion. But I do, Steve. I'm about to say in the timestamp you've given me, I actually reply to what you're saying here now.
Yeah, but again, there's no details. There's no details whatsoever. Who made these flying saucers? These squadrons of flying saucers appearing over major cities around the world. Who made them? Where are they being stored? Who operates them? Who maintains them? Who paid for them? Ben will say, oh, there's trillions missing from the American coffers every year or whatever. So it sounds like he thinks that the Americans would have made these flying saucers, and they've got them stored in America somewhere. We don't know that. We have to assume that because he won't give us any details. See what I mean? So let's assume for a minute that the Americans did have a couple of squadrons of flying saucers, and they put one of them over Moscow, they put one of them over Beijing, and they start shooting the place up. What do you think is going to happen? Is this a scenario that he has in his head? Because the Chinese and the Russians are going to shoot them down pretty quickly. That'll be a very good indicator that they're not dealing with aliens, because you wouldn't be able to... Alien technology would be such that you could not shoot them down. But once you had shot them down, they're going to find that the crews are human. And they're going to be seriously miffed to find they're Americans, aren't they? And apparently this is all supposed to bring the world together under one world government, scare the people into coming together under one world government. Well, can you imagine who is going to run it? Trump? Putin? Xi Jinping? You know, the whole thing is ludicrous. It's just science fiction drivel. Yeah, let's see what else he's got to say here.
This video. I remember I did explain to you how we do have certain models.
Who's we, for a start, and certain models? What does that mean? You know, the model from V, very similar to the model from Independence Day. Very similar to the model from War of the Worlds.
Of models on what could be done. Anyway, I say...
No, I don't think so. I'll say it again. No nation or collection of nations on Earth has the finance or technology to be able to pull off a convincing fake alien invasion. It'd be pointless doing it anyway. No, you're never going to unite the world under one government. The whole thing is ludicrous. It's a sort of drivel that's spruiked by idiots that live in cars and fucking... Sorry about that. Basements. Maybe I should redo that. But the whole thing is just nonsense, you know. Again, he doesn't give any details. He says, well, you know, that there are models out there, but what exactly do you think? See, if I was sitting in front of him, if we were having a debate, I could say, what exactly do you think would happen? Who owns these things? Who paid for them to be built? Who operates them? Who maintains them? Exactly how would this plan play out? Don't tell me there's models. Just tell me how you think this plan would play out. A fake alien invasion. How is it going to unfold? They're American flying saucers. What happens when they're shot down over Russia? They're shot down over China. They're shot down over Brazil. And people find that they're staffed by not only humans, but American humans. What happens then? You know, the whole thing is science fiction nonsense. Apart from that, no one's got a flying disc, have they? No one's ever made a flying disc that actually works.
It's not possible, and he says, yes, it is. Yeah, I'll explain why. Of course, he offers no evidence.
Did he say, I'll explain why, or I've explained why? Well, he certainly hasn't explained why.
To support the existence of a secret manned space program, because there isn't one. Oh, but I do.
No, you don't. I've never seen any. Show me some evidence of a manned secret space program. I'm sure we'd all be enthralled to see it.
Either... I can't repeat myself by just explaining every point. If I explain a point to you and you just go back and repeat what you said before I explained the point, what do? I can either ignore what you say or I...
No. I'm asking you for details. You're not giving details. You're saying, well, there are some models, you know. I'm not hearing any detail. You know, the details, as I've said before. You know, who, what, when, where, how. I'm not hearing any detail. The devil is always in the detail. It's very easy to come up with a science fiction scenario. Oh, yeah, there's a manned secret space program. You could use something from that, you know, to create this fake alien invasion. Doesn't go on to say who operates this secret space fleet. You know, is it the Russians? Is it the Americans? Is it a combination? Who are they going to attack and pretend to be aliens? The whole thing is just ludicrous.
I can repeat the point I made before. This is what I mean when I talk about the carousel. It's like,
Yeah, well,
you're just going round and round in circles.
yeah, well, the way to stop that is just have a debate. Stop hiding behind Sugrin and just answer the questions. Add the detail. Don't just say, oh yeah, they could easily do it. There are models in place. You know, that's not an answer, is it?
Either before or after he reacts, he reads an excerpt from his book about squadrons of flying saucers appearing above cities all over the world. That's true, I did, on Roswell Rising, a novel of
Yes, it's a science fiction novel.
disclosure, available at all good bookshops now, yeah. But I based that on genuine research, Steve. Everything in the Roswell trilogy is based on genuine research.
Yeah, but you're not a researcher, Ben. You're a conspiracy hobbyist. The conclusions you come to are science fiction drivel. You come to the conclusion that free energy is real when it isn't. You seriously believe there's a secret manned space program. There isn't. There's no evidence of that. Show me evidence of it, and I'll say, okay, fair enough, I was wrong. I have never seen any evidence to support that. I've never seen any evidence to support manned bases on the moon. Never seen any evidence to support alien bases on the moon. It's all science fiction stories.
Research.
You're not a researcher. You're a science fiction story peddler.
Who exactly would have the technology and finance to be able to do this? How about the 10 trillion or whatever, or the 3.8 trillion that was missing from the Department of Defense budget? That doesn't include the black budget. How about all the money they raised through the drugs, through the illegal drugs trade?
So they being the Americans, okay? So subconsciously he's told us that the secret space program is operated by the Americans. So there we are. What happens when these American-made flying saucers pretend to be aliens and go and shoot up Moscow or Beijing? What do you really think is going to happen when they get shot down and the crews, the dead aliens turn out to be dead Americans? What do you think would happen then? That's really going to pull everyone together under a one world government, isn't it? Be World War III, wouldn't it?
Look, goodness gracious me. There's no... How much tax do they have? Do you know, in the United States, 51% of all capitals...
Oh, there you go. You said it. The United States. So in between those two headphone units here, there, and there, there's probably a little bit of porridge. But there's not very much going on in there. So consciously he thinks this is all going to be run by the Americans. Yeah, he thinks this is all run by the Americans. So can anybody out there really imagine what would happen if the Americans did this? It's a ludicrous science fiction rubbish.
It's forfeit to the government of tax. Do you know how much money that is?
Doesn't matter how much money they've got. The technology is not there to make flying saucers. Not that would work on the same principles as alien spacecraft. Not that would be able to convince somebody that they were an alien spacecraft. The way they moved, the way they manoeuvred, we could not make anything like that. We can't do that today. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. That's the bottom line. It's nonsense.
So financing, it wouldn't be a problem. Technology, I've explained the technology to you.
No, you haven't. Science fiction flying saucers powered by science fiction free energy. That's not an explanation, Ben. That's just claptrap. That's just that's just the musing of someone that spends far too much time, only working 3 hours a day, looking at the walls of his bedsit and filling his head with rubbish from the internet.
All he can say to the question, what happens when the alien bodies start piling up and are quickly shown to be very human, is that wouldn't happen. No, I didn't just say that. I explained what...
Yes, you did. You most certainly did say that. You said, well, that wouldn't happen, and moved on. If I can be bothered, I'll try and find that clip. Okay.
Why? Okay, that's nice and easy, isn't it? As I said before, any obstacle can be overcome in science fiction with one line of text. That's a complete misrepresentation of what I said.
No, it's not. That's a completely accurate representation of what he said. You know, how would you pull off a fake alien invasion? Oh, well, there'd be these flying saucers, you know, that are built with all this missing money from the American coffers. Science fiction rubbish. It's nonsense. That's not an explanation. There's no evidence to support any of that. That's the opinion of a self-employed dog walker. It's not. It's meaningless.
It wouldn't happen. Next question, please. Don't be ridiculous, Steve. Don't be ridiculous. Laughable. He then quotes several science fiction movies that depict alien invasions as examples of how it would be done. There's nothing wrong with it, Steve. There's nothing wrong with that.
Apart from the fact they're science fiction. Of course there's something wrong with that. Aliens would not come here. If aliens wanted to take the planet, they would not come here and fight us on our own terms. We would never ever get in a shooting war with aliens. If aliens came here to take the planet, they'd kill us all with a bioweapon. We wouldn't even meet them. We wouldn't even know what was happening. We certainly wouldn't have time to make an antidote. You've got to bear in mind, if they're coming here to take the planet, they've probably colonised other planets in the same way. They're going to know exactly what they're doing. They're not going to come here and start firing lasers at people and give people opportunity to find the one common ship that you need to destroy that's going to bring down their entire alien attack force, you know, like with Independence Day. And what was the other one? Something to Battle of Los Angeles. There always has to be, in these science fiction films, there always has to be a single point of failure engineered into the alien attack plan so that we can destroy that single point of failure and win. In reality, that would not exist. We would never win a war with aliens. It's science fiction rubbish.
If they are realistic things. But I mean, I also look at other people. There's also many, many other genuine people, like Mark Passio and several other people, who've done this.
Well, how many non-genuine people are we referencing here, I wonder?
It's in the real world. They've explained how it would be possible in the real world. All you have to do is you have to have access to certain technologies. You have to have control of the media. Well, the deep state has that.
Rubbish. No such thing as the deep state, of course. This is all paranoid, delusional drivel. Rubbish. Absolute bloody rubbish. I don't know how much more of this I can take, to be honest.
It seems to have completely escaped him that these are science fiction movies, not documentaries. Yes, but they are based on genuine, they either unintentionally or unintentionally, they reflect genuine research, Steve.
Yeah, right. Evidence for this genuine research. Who carried out this genuine research? You know, another unemployed bum living in a car? Or is it something someone reputable? I'm not talking about Tom DeLonge and the bunch of clowns at the TTSA. Who is doing this research? Where is this research published? Show us this research. Give us links to this research.
No one has the technology or finance to replicate the scenes shown in those movies for real. They have both, Steve.
No, they don't. You see, this is... it's very easy to say... it's very easy... it's very easy to say, yeah, we've got all this technology. It's not very easy, of course, to show any evidence for it, because it isn't real. It doesn't exist. He's thinking, well, there's free energy out there. You know, all this other science fiction claptrap. but it's not there. It really isn't.
And sorry, Ben, but there were no holograms used on 9/11. Well, really? Well, what were these things? What were these objects seen flying through the air?
They're called aircraft, Ben. You know, people say that these conspiracy clowns tend to believe in all of these conspiracies, or the majority of these conspiracies, and that seems to be the case with Ben as well. He's another one of these cranks that thinks that 9/11 was not as depicted in the history books, and you can watch the documentaries on it over and over again. You can see the aircraft hitting the building and all that sort of stuff. They were aircraft. You think they're going to fabricate maintenance records for those three aircrafts for the last 20 years? You know, people are going to say they worked on those aircraft. What happened to the aircraft? Where did they go? Where did the passengers go? Are you saying there was no people on those aircraft? You know, absolute nonsense. This guy's completely... He lives in cloud cuckoo land. He really does. He's got absolutely no grip on reality, this bloke.
They just sort of disappear into the side of the building like a ghost walking into a wall.
Well, if you've got a very heavy aircraft travelling at a very high speed, that's an awful lot of energy. And what you see is what you get. Simple as that. All right. Well, I'll just see if there's anything else. Otherwise, I want to try and find that clip where he said that wouldn't happen. Okay, well, I found a clip from another Ben video. This is a reply to me, Space Force, a reply to Steve Mumbling. Now, remember, I just said, you know, what would happen when the fake alien spacecraft gets shot down and the crew's found to be human. And I said I'd seen on another video, in fact this one, Ben saying, well, that would never happen. Doesn't have to deal with that, just brushes over that. That would never happen. And on the video we were just looking at in the previous clip, he said he never said that. So let's just have a look at this. And there's the timestamp, 2:06:07.
What would happen when the bodies started piling up and were very rapidly identified as being human?
Well, there's no reason to think that would ever happen for the reasons I've explained.
Well, that ties that up into a nice neat bow, doesn't it? Don't answer the question, what would happen if someone carried out, if someone had the technology, which they don't have, of course, but someone had the technology to carry out a fake alien invasion. One of their fake alien spacecraft was shot down, you know, over a foreign country's territory, and the crew were found to be human and were still Americans. What would happen then? Well, it would never happen. Oh, that's okay then. We'll go on to the next question, shall we? See what I mean about the detail? These people will spruik all this science fiction rubbish, but they will avoid the detail at all costs. They will say, yeah, well, you can have a War of the Worlds scenario, you know, or you can have an Independence Day scenario. And as I've said before, aliens aren't going to come here and fight us on our own terms. And in the War of the Worlds, we didn't beat them, did we? The planet beat them. Nature beat them. That wouldn't happen either, because if aliens wanted to take the planet, they would come here and they would take the samples that they needed to show that they could live here quite happily. They wouldn't come here and be surprised by something in our atmosphere or in the water or whatever that would kill them. Never happen. So, yeah, nice, good science fiction film, but this as a real scenario, is rubbish. Same with Independence Day. Same with Pacific Rim. You know, they all have this engineered, this single point of failure engineered into the alien attack plan, so that the alien attack can be foiled. In real life, never happen. Never be a shooting war with aliens. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Okay, one last little bit on the fake alien invasion before we move on to the final item about Peter Paget.
I think you misunderstand. You seem to be very good at playing amateur psychologist with me.
He's talking to me. This is the reply to Steve Mumbling video, not the general reply to comments 33 video.
and going on about my loneliness issues. I'm talking to volleyballs and things like that.
Actually, no. That was they are your own words, Ben. I never said that. You did. I just repeated it and suggested that it might be why you sort of immerse yourself in all this woo, all this rubbish, because you've got little else going on, and you could never admit the truth. That's what the point was. You could never admit the truth, because if you did, then the social circles that you move in at the moment, which are all woo related, would disappear, would evaporate. But for those that are interested, Kev Baker, he mentioned that on the Kev Baker show, which is a sort of low rent. I don't think it's even a radio station. It's supposedly Truth Frequency Radio. Well, well, you're never going to hear any truth on there for a start. And I think it's internet only. I don't think it's a real radio station as such. So there'd be no frequency or radio involved in it either. So even the title of the thing is completely misleading. Truth Frequency Radio with Kevin Baker. But anyway, that was what Ben Emlyn-Jones said about himself, that he, without the world of woo, would die of loneliness, that he would end up talking to volleyballs or beach balls, whatever they were, just like the character in the movie Castaway. So they are Ben's words, not mine.
But you don't. When it comes to mass culture and psychology, I think you you underestimate the power of the official sources of information. And what's more, you say they shoot it. The army will come along and shoot it through full of holes. Not if there's a secret contingency plan for dealing with this sort of thing. They may not. Secondly, if they do, it may not work, because these aren't balloons. Of course, if you take a gun and you shoot at a balloon, it's going to come down, because you will hole it, and the lifting gas or the hot air will leak out. But Steve, what if it's not that? What if it's run by something else? What if it's something what if the creators take that into account and produce, they produce armour, they armour it against small arms fire?
Where does small arms fire come into this? So let's suppose the Americans have got some flying saucers, and they're going to carry out a fake alien invasion. So they attack Moscow and they attack Beijing with their fake alien flying saucers, with their American-built flying saucers. They're not going to have to be armoured against small arms fire, are they? They're going to have to be armoured against, missiles fired by MiG-29s or whatever the latest version of whatever the top frontline Russian fighter planes are, and what the frontline Chinese fighter planes are, air-to-air missiles. And they're not going to have to be armoured against small arms fire. I think he seriously believes that they get something that looks like a flying saucer will appear over a sports stadium, and you might get a few people taking pot shots at it with 45s. Is that what he's got in mind? He's talking about an awful lot of flying saucers over the major cities of the world. And, they're going to be vigorously defended. And they're going to be vigorously defended with frontline military equipment, not small arms fire. But this is, again, it's just another comment that shows you how completely clueless he really is. He can't put his head in that space mentally. How would that play out for real? He just can't put his head in that space, which sort of makes me think that his book might be not terribly imaginative. I mean, he did actually say, I think in this video, that he would send me a signed copy if I wanted one, which is very generous of him, I have to say. Now, I don't have a PO box associated with this YouTube channel. I do have a PO box, but if you Googled it, it might come up with some other stuff on it. So if I ever get a PO box sorted out, or I find someone that will let me use their PO box address, I'll take you up on that, Ben. You can send me a copy of your book, and if you do, I'll certainly read it. And I'll let you know what I think of it. I mean, I might really enjoy it as a science fiction story. I would probably, my guess is that I'd probably enjoy it as a science fiction story, but I would probably poo-poo it as absolute rubbish with regard it being truth written as fiction, I think is a term you've used in the past to describe your book. Often with books, you can tell how much imagination the author has and what sort of how it's going to play out, or how interesting the story is going to be, by looking at the names of the characters. If the names of the characters are believable, it sort of suggests that the author can put their head in the right space. Now, you said that your lead character is someone called Clane Quiddy. Now, to be honest, I've never ever come across anyone called Clane. It's a bit of a strange name, Clane Quiddy. So, I don't know whether that suggests that it's going to be a bit too far out there, maybe. Or maybe not quite far out there enough. But certainly if I get a PO box sorted out, I'll take you up on that very generous offer, Ben, and you can send me a copy of your book. And I tell you what, if I do enjoy it as a science fiction story, I'll buy the other two. Okay? That's probably the very least I could do if you were going to do something like that. Send me a signed copy of the book. The very least I could do is buy the other two, episode 2 and episode 3, if I enjoy it. Anyway, let's move on to the final thing, the Peter Paget thing, and then I can finally hit stop. Okay, to end with, I think we've done the fake alien invasion to death. Completely impossible, of course. Outside of the minds of a few conspiracy cranks. Now, I'm going to end with something about Peter Paget.
Where are we now? Okay, and we have here another. Guess what? It's another comment from Steve on the Space Force video. Who'd have thought it, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Another convicted fraud that appeared on Johnston's page. Peter Paget, real name Peter Fisher. All right, here we go. Oh, I've heard about this. Yes. Revealed the con artist using fake identities to steal hundreds of thousands of pounds in benefits, including one who claimed he was a spy. James Bond imitator, Peter Fisher. All right. This is supposedly a picture of Peter Paget. Well,
if you see that picture and you see a picture of Peter Paget, there is no doubt it's the same person.
Now, when was this? Now, Matthew Williams brought this up on his channel, 2nd of November 2014. Right. Now, last time I looked, I actually received I'm on his email list. I received an email from him less than a month ago. Now, if he's using email, he's not in jail, Steve, is he?
And if you read the article, you would read that he got something like a 2-year suspended sentence. That's why he's not in jail.
How come he's not? If all this is true, if he's been convicted, how come he's not in jail?
And if it isn't true, how come he hasn't sued the Daily Mail for an awful lot of money?
Are you sure this is not some kind of cover story?
If it was a cover story, it would never have got into the public press. If Peter Paget was a real spook, the whole thing would have been suppressed. It never would have gone to court. It would never be in the public domain. He's not going to be standing up in a court of law saying, "Look, I'm a spook. I created all these legends so I could have all these safe houses to help other spooks." It's ludicrous nonsense, and rightly the judge laughed at him, found him guilty. They should have made him pay the 82 grand back in benefits that he fraudulently obtained as well.
Well, of course, I know what your answer to that is. Of course, they say, no, it's not a cover story because there are no covering, and there are no covers up. There are no covering up or anything.
I'll tell you how I know for sure and certain that Peter Paget is not a spook. From my own personal experience with Peter Paget. And this goes back to the 70s, when Peter Paget and his then wife ran a UFO B&B in Warminster called Star House. And I went down there to do a little bit of research, have a look around, see if I could interview Arthur Shuttlewood, who seemed to hide under the table every time I knocked on his door. I was then a fairly young chap, and I had a brand new car. It was dark blue, and it had a two-way radio installed in it and a two-way radio antenna on it. And I looked out of the window and I saw Peter Paget was sort of, because it was locked, he was sort of looking in through the windows and all this sort of stuff. He's looking into the car. And I thought, what's he up to? So I went out to have a word with him, and he said he was convinced, simply because I was a young bloke with a new car, so it sort of suggests that I wouldn't be able to afford such a car. And it had a two-way radio installed in it, which in those days was not common. That I was a spook. I was MI5, and I'd been sent there by the government to spy on Peter Paget. Now, if Peter Paget was a spook, he would have known that I wasn't a spook, wouldn't he? Because effectively he'd be working for the same company. So yeah, he wasn't a spook. He's no more a spook than he is 52% Pleiadian. He was on Miles Johnston's channel telling everyone he was 52% Pleiadian, when in fact he's 100% plebeian. So yeah, I put a line through Peter Paget. He's a waste of time.
He claimed on... Oh, right, sorry, I've got to do the voice. You know, Steve's making so many comments, it's actually hurting my throat to do his voice.
Serves you right. I don't sound like that.
It's just like Andy Serkis, the guy who did Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He said he developed, like, ulcers on his throat from doing that voice. He claimed on Johnston's channel he was a 52% plebeian. PMSL. In fact, he's 100% plebeian.
Oh, I actually put that on there.
Actually, I must say that's quite witty, Steve, by your standards.
Well, thank you, Ben.
He did. I mean, the thing about
By my standards.
Pleiadians, I mean, you may have heard of Carol Noonan, who I've interviewed.
I think all this Pleiadian nonsense started with Billy Meyer, you know, the guy that made the model flying saucers, hung them up with fishing line and then photographed them and told the world they were beam ships from the Pleiades. I think that's where all this Pleiadian nonsense originated.
There are beings that are interacting with the humanity right now.
He tells us this as though he knows. I think this is more science fiction, of course. I think you should be providing evidence. That's an extraordinary claim, Ben. I think we should be seeing evidence of that. You can't just say that there are alien species interacting with people now, mankind now, you know, without providing evidence of that. If you don't provide evidence of that, it's a science fiction story.
Now, I mean, they're called Pleiadians.
Well, we call the Pleiades, but the Pleiades, any Pleiadians are going to call their star system and their planet something else, aren't they? They're not going to call themselves Pleiadians, are they? So the first thing I'd be asking one of these Pleiadians is, what do you call yourself, mate?
Pleiadians. Carol Noonan channels them. But
nobody channels aliens. It's science fiction rubbish.
I reckon she does. I don't know whether they actually come from the Pleiades. The Pleiades is quite a new system, apparently. It's unlikely to have planetary systems around most of the stars. But that's just the name by which they're known. But I believe they're real. And what's more, there are hybrids. Hybrids exist. I've met hybrids. I felt the head of a woman who claims to be an extraterrestrial hybrid, and she has a cleft skull.
That's not proof, Ben. And I think was it Steve Palmer left a comment below this video of Ben's showing that having a cleft skull is actually a human condition, some sort of medical condition in humans. And he talks about this as if he knows these are all aliens, and he doesn't, of course. This is just science fiction hogwash that he's swallowed hook, line and sinker because he has such difficulty telling fact from fiction. It's all absolute bloody rubbish, unless evidence is shown to prove otherwise. And I've never ever seen any. All right, well, I think that's probably going to be it. I was going to show another clip, but I can't be bothered to find it, where he's saying about, until I apologise to Colin Sugrin, he's not going to have a debate with me. Now, there was a caveat in the video he did previously. He said, it's got to be sincere, and Colin Sugrin has to accept it. That was another caveat. So obviously behind the scenes they've said, well, what if Mumbling does it? What if Mumbling apologises? What are you going to do then? So he threw in the caveat that and if Colin accepts the apology, well, yes, then we can have a debate. The real reason, of course, is that he knows he would be crushed. All his ridiculous arguments would be crushed. All his science fiction nonsense would be kicked into touch. So there we go. All right, well, I think that'll do. If you've struggled through this video all the way to here, many thanks for watching. And I hope, if nothing else, it's been useful to help you with your insomnia. And perhaps I'll catch you again.